So the first thing is, why BSI? Why are we speaking to you about this? From what you've seen today, you think British standards, the guys who write standards and who test all kinds of interesting, weird and wonderful things out there. One of the other threads to our business is this fancy word, organisational resilience. There's our homepage on the website, front and centre, organisational resilience. So this is something Penny alluded to, where we're really helping businesses. It sounds like it's to do with risk, but it's a lot more to do with that. We kind of say it's beyond surviving, it's thriving, really. So it's how to maximise opportunities and minimise risks, be that over a period of months or a period of years. So that's a key part to our business, and that's really the angle I'm coming from today. So the other key thing is we recognise it's not just the products that we're testing here, it's about people, it's about process as well. So a lot of what we do is training, consultancy, and then auditing and certification of processes as well as products. So that's the background. Now on to the Internet of Things, and what is it? The easiest thing to say is it's where the digital world meets the physical world. People tend to think of the IoT, oh, that's that thing where in the smart homes you can control your lights and your heating via your phone. That's absolutely not what this is about at all. Imagine instead it's your home that learns your habits, learns your preferences, that knows who's where in the house, that knows what the ambient light is, knows what the temperature is, knows what the weather forecast is, knows the best price for gas and electricity, where to source it from, knows the serviceability state of your boiler, manages all of that to deliver you the perfect environment you want at the best possible price without you having to even think about it. And that's the real magic of the Internet of Things. And that model of the home, take that forward to all of your businesses, be that healthcare, be that travel, be that farming, be that power generation, and it's that same digital transformation occurring throughout. So you've got all these ecosystems that we're kind of familiar with, whether it's healthcare and hospitals, the home, retail environment. Then behind all that, you have the network, the technology, the software, and the data and analysis. So it is a combination of technologies. It's not a single thing. And then it is all those machines talking, learning, and then acting as well without human intervention, where the real differentiation lies. So some examples very briefly in the smart home. It can be anything from security systems, cameras, door locks, appliances. Absolutely true. There's an internet-enabled toothbrush. Absolutely true. It tells you how long you've been brushing your teeth. I remember there was a Welsh comedian that jokes and said, I know I was there. But it does tell you how well you're brushing your teeth. Obviously, smart TVs, smart entertainment, energy and lighting, and health. So we're seeing it adopted widely through the home. Smart cities, we talked about this a little bit earlier, Peter did. And again, here again, this fundamental change, and Milton Keynes was mentioned, within the UK, very strong in Scotland, several smart city projects there, besides the kind of London and Manchester, all looking at improving quality of life in the city, whether it's the buildings, transportation, energy are three of the key threads, but many, many different aspects of the city, all of which underpinned by the Internet of Things. And then factories, you've heard already the four, I won't bother going through that again, the cyber-physical systems. What's the game value here, really? It's quite simple. More output, less cost, and the key one is more differentiation here. So we're moving from mass production to a world of mass customization, and that's how industries, that's how businesses are going to differentiate. And that kind of agility at scale at industry is now also moving across really into retail as well. So this is another phrase that's come up really in the last few months, now retail 4.0. So whatever aspect of your business here, whether it's retail or B2B, there are aspects of this that will be important to you. So here really we're talking about the customer experience. We're not talking about efficiencies because of savings on utility costs and this kind of thing, where a lot of the initial IoT work was. This is all about transforming the customer experience. So throughout the whole of the buying cycle, a single branded original experience. So this is from need, awareness, selection, purchase, and post-purchase. So that is taking you from the online world into the store and beyond in one single experience. And the key things are that this is tailored to the individual customer. Every customer feels special. And we're back to this dynamic response to changing demand, that scaled agility, the agility to respond to a new demand, a new request very quickly across a global organization. And once again, The Internet of Things enables that throughout the store, from your device on which you first search and look through something, throughout the store and throughout the whole supply chain. So again, here it's really happening, particularly as accelerated in 2017. So one of the key questions, and this is something, again, taking on from what was said earlier, is why are we doing this? And this is the first thing we should all be thinking about. And the two statements I hear most often that cause me a lot of concern here, first of all, it's this, you think, oh, we know why we're doing this, it's obvious. And it's this fear culture again. We have to do it now. Everyone's going to do it, or not, we'll be dead, we'll be gone. Half of the Fortune 500 companies won't exist in so many years' time because they don't adopt the IoT. Let's adopt it now. And the other one is, well, we're upgrading our systems, we're upgrading our buildings. It's only going to cost an extra 10% to enable everything, so let's just do it. And these are not valid reasons. These kind of plans have one kind of outcome. And I've seen this manifestly happen. So what's missing here? What's missing here, and that fundamental why, is quite simply, it's strategy. This kind of thing is not an add-on. This is not something you do on the side. It's not something you think you'll try. In order for it to succeed, you have to think of this at the core of your business. And speaking to some of you earlier, I know some of you are fully on board with this, but it might seem a new concept that it's the C-level people within a business that should be driving this, not the technologists. I evangelize about this and go on and on about it, but it's not me that's going to change a business, it's the chief executive. So you've got to think of where's the money here. And again, there's a lot of focus on organizational performance and data capture and all this fantastic data that we're getting right now. But going back to that very valid point about climate change, the data's been there, some of the analysis has been there, but the will to actually affect on it isn't. And it's that response that matters. So when you're considering this within your company, think about the climate change scenario. You might have all the data and the best analysis in the world, but unless your organization is geared up to respond to that change, all the analysis is going to tell you is that the ice cap's melting, not what to do about it. So it's that response that's just as important as the data capture and analysis to ensure you deliver the required outcomes. But really, there is so much more potential within this customer experience. If you think of this side of things as just cost savings, improving profitability, this side of things has a wealth of adventures we've hardly even started to explore. So again, think of that single branded responsive experience that the customer is taken through the whole of the journey, whether you're B2B or B2C, and really how to differentiate. So this is an area where I've seen some real surprises, and too much focus here and not enough focus here. If I've got time, I'll go into some examples, but we'll move on for now. So when you're thinking about why use the IoT, why adopt it right now, it's got to be part of your strategy. And for a retail, the kind of thing I see that works is when you're looking to quantify an improvement in footfall in your stores and spend per basket. And again, we're back to this. How do you deliver that? You deliver that through a differentiated customer experience. And yes, behind that as well, you have your organizational performance, looking throughout the whole of the supply chain here to improve profitability. And the data analysis here goes beyond your assets. Think about how you're analyzing your customers, your employees' behavior, as well as your assets. All of that is hugely valuable, but only if you then effect process improvement and change to react to it. And I can't stress enough how often this aspect gets pushed to the bottom of the pile, or certainly ignored when everyone sees the glamour of the technology. And you're not really thinking about what else in terms of change management we're going to need to embody to ensure it delivers. And where does IoT fit in? Well, this is what really provides the connectivity and the data to support all of this. So why am I stressing this so much and that you've got to have a strategy? What's really wrong with saying, well, let's just try it and see? The reason is you've got a couple of good things over here that potentially are going to add to your bottom line. But unless you address these and absolutely clarify what you're going to do, there's another side to the scale. Two very, very simple questions here. Will it work and is it secure? But those two questions potentially come with a very big price tag. We'll start with the rewards then. So this slide I took from a presentation I gave to an audience in the retail world looking at why adopt the IoT. The rest of the presentations through the day were guys basically hawking their solutions saying, come to us, IoT will change your business. So each one of these, I then took from the synopsis of one of the speakers who came after me. I said then to the audience, I said, these are the potential rewards that everyone who's going to speak now is going to offer you. But these aren't rewards themselves. The IoT doesn't deliver you this reward. It enables it, but it still requires you as an organization to react. And everybody here, as well as in that particular audience, will have a different use case. There's no one solution. You can say, great, we're going to adopt that. It's all there ready to go. Everybody will have a different set of problems to solve. Everyone will have a different set of systems they're going to have to put in place. So all of this there, this big pile of cash, is there as a potential, but only if you, as an organization, put the systems in place to respond and invest in sorting out what your use case actually is. So rewards then, from what are the rewards of IoT? IoT, the Internet of Things, is an enabler, is not a solution. So you've got to think about what your strategy is, what outcomes you're going to get here. So what percentage of increase in revenues and in profit, and where are they going to come from? And what does your use case actually look like? Within your organization, what are all these technologies going to have to come in and do, and how's it going to fit within your organization? This is absolutely vital. Unless that first bullet point is sorted, all the rest of it you can forget. So everyone's use case is unique. There is no off-the-shelf solution that works. So you're going to have to be aware of these dependencies that they're on you as an organization. And the key thing here really is involving all the stakeholders. Again, this is kind of classic change management, classic kind of problems that we've seen with big IT projects over the last 30 years. And we're seeing exactly the same kind of problems now. People see the technology, get that in there, it's going to change the world for us. But only if you involve all the stakeholders. And that starts with your customers. If the customers don't buy into it, forget it. And then it's your employees at front of house, throughout your organization, throughout your supply chain. They all have to be involved in deciding what that outcome is going to be. Otherwise, you're going to be doomed to failure. All of that comes at a cost. So once again, when there's the guy there selling you this fantastic new technology, saying how it's going to transform your business, you've got to plan in there what your internal costs, effort, and associated risks are to deliver that return on investment. So on the other side of it, what are these risks? What is out there that's so terrifying and scary and going to cause such a problem? It's two words, really. Interoperability, which sounds a bit fancy, but it's quite straightforward, and security. So basically, will the system actually work? And that's with its own little technology bubble, but also in the wider system throughout your organization. And then secondly, is it secure? And here, everyone focuses very much on data security, but actually a bigger risk is the product and the service that you deliver and that anyone else you're connected to delivers. How secure and safe is that? I'll come on to that very briefly. This is a very, very big subject that I'm going to cover in a couple of minutes, so there'll probably be a load of questions that I can take afterwards, maybe as we're having a coffee. But as a very quick overview, first thing, well, what's the real scale of the problem? There was a little pile of cash you might get if it all goes well. There's a huge pile of cash that's going to go out the door for a class action lawsuit and for government fines and penalties for data breaches if it goes wrong. But as well as that, there's the less tangible thing of your brand reputation. There have already been, in just the last 12 months, all kinds of, I can think of British Airways comes to head straight away for about 2 or 3 incidences. Yes, they'll probably bounce back from that. Smaller companies probably wouldn't have done. But problems you have here with your technology can absolutely kill the brand. So the first one, will the system work? What's the big deal? You think, well, surely you test it. The objective of having your system tested is test the system works. The problem here isn't will the system work, it's what happens when it breaks. And the trouble is, you will never really know this until it's installed and using it. I've got a ton more slides to go behind this. The big takeaway point here really is that this will always, you put a system like this into your business, it will always extend on the day that it all gets signed off and it's all working. And to have a plan in place to make sure that you are not signing your new fantastic technology system off until it's well and truly embedded within your organization. And the main thing is, it's about the people. It's the training costs and all the mentoring and the change management that needs to go on to make that system work. So key point here with getting the system work and the interoperability, there's all the technical side, but it's embedding it within your organization where quite often there's the failure. Wider than that, the biggest point here, and this is something that was alluded to earlier as well, if there's one question to ask anybody to put down, written in their own blood, back an answer to it, which the most important thing is, how long is this platform going to be supported? What can you do to guarantee that this platform is going to be supported? Because whoever is selling you one platform is probably dependent on 3 or 4 others as well. And what have they got in place to make sure that their system is going to be resilient, to make sure that your system is going to be resilient? Because the best technology in the world today may not be there tomorrow, and you could be lumbered with a whole load of useless cost and wasted money that's just sitting there doing nothing. So the way to tie this in as well going forward is to have in your service agreement with your supplier some kind of key performance indicators, which means they're only going to get paid if the system actually works. It sounds obvious, but it's a fundamental thing to be asking on day one, and that really does help sort out the sheep from the goats at a very early stage. This part is the one that gets more attention, and I will try and keep this relatively straightforward at the kind of top level of what you need to know rather than go into too much of the details. Is the system secure? Firstly, against what? What's the threat here? What we tend to think of is this kind of thing, which the NHS and many organisations suffered from earlier this year. We're talking theft of data and ransom of data. In some ways, this is kind of a standard cyber attack where people have gone in totally at the digital level. And it kind of misses a bit of a point, really, with IoT devices, is that they also act physically with the real world around you as well. So it's not just going to be data, it's not just going to be money, it really genuinely can be people's lives. So the other area within the Internet of Things, this is quite a benign example, but nevertheless one that got a lot of attention from pretty much exactly a year ago, was the Mirai Botnet. So basically, lots of, I think it was hundreds of thousands of vulnerable IoT devices. In this case, it was cameras and DVD recorders were accessed, hacked, malware put on them, and they just flooded the system, the internet, effectively, with useless data. And it took down Amazon, Twitter, PayPal, Spotify, and most of the US internet. There are many others. So that's a famous example. That's from a year ago, and there have been many, many since. And there are more examples I could give. In the Internet of Things world, there was a steelworks in Germany that was hacked, and they couldn't shut down the furnace, and it destroyed the factory. Nobody was killed, very, very fortunately. But it's that kind of real physical world interaction, as well as taking down the internet. There are a lot of things here that potentially are very, very real risks. So all this sounds incredibly scary. So what do we do about today's problems? That's one thing. It's what's coming tomorrow. So even if you had something today that was secure against every threat, tomorrow's threat, who knows? So can you be 100% secure? And unfortunately, there is no such thing as 100% secure. So what you've got to face up to, it doesn't mean the end of the world here. What you've got to face up to is winter is coming, you will be hacked. Anybody, you've got the right skills, the time and the tools and motive, any system can be hacked. So what do you do about it? And this is where it's the big judgment call, and this is where we're doing a lot of work right now, is on this risk analysis. What's appropriate for your particular environment to say that you've done what's reasonable with the current threats and protect against current future threats? And that's what you need to be aiming towards. And it's a simple statement to make. It's a very difficult thing to achieve. And you tend to be looking at a whole load of things here. Risk reduction. Yes, you're reducing the attack surface, to use the fancy term for it, and how you can be attacked. But how resilient is your system? How do you respond when you are attacked, and how do you recover? These are very, very important topics that I don't expect any of you guys to be experts on, but you need to get experts in to help you. And there are ways of getting around this and coming up with a pragmatic system. So I don't want to scare you all into thinking this is something that's so completely scary and terrible, don't get involved. It's about balancing the opportunities and the threats, the risk and reward. So accepting the fact that all this new fancy technology, it's going to transform your organizations, it's going to transform the experience of your customers, and all that, there's loads of money to be had, and all I'm saying is To get all of that, you've got to invest in ensuring you're going to be okay on the other side here. So looking at these security risks and looking at lifetime resilience for your systems and looking at how they're really going to work together and making sure that in order to achieve all this, that you actually build in some resilience and you invest in that side of the equation as well. So I've kind of rattled through things here, bear in mind the time. I think this last slide, I just want to kind of summarize the key points here. So, as I said, there's this kind of fear factor. We've got to get on this, the tsunami's coming in now. We've got to ride the wave, all these other phrases. You've got to think of that reward and risk balance. All of that starts with a strategy. Again, this is not a bolt-on. This is not an add-on. And I've had the argument back, well, if you're at the decision point now for refurbishing a whole load of buildings that you're responsible for, or you've got a decision point for investment right now, we haven't got time for the strategy. Say no, there's always time for the strategy. Even if that's an emergency board meeting, whatever it takes, there is always time for the strategy. So strategy, outcomes, and use case. It's very, very straightforward investment here, but unless you get that bit right, the rest of it will not work. So then think about your particular use case in your organization. How will your organization's people, process, and product need to change? And that change management in order to get those benefits. And then really keep in mind, the guy who's selling you all this fancy technology, what's it going to take within your organization's people, process, and product to actually deliver results to your bottom line while minimizing the risks. And above all, it's get expert help. And yes, okay, that's a bit of an advert for us. We obviously provide consultancy and all that to do all that kind of thing. Whether it's us or whether it's anybody, don't do this alone. There's a huge opportunity here to be had. And I've seen companies succeed. I've seen companies fail. The ones that succeed are the ones that have a strategy and the one that follows through.